Hello and welcome to the Magical Holistic Healing Arts podcast. I'm Lyn Hicks.
I'm Erika Hicks.
And we're a mother-daughter duo, curiously investigating the healing and expressive arts in its many modalities to learn greater ways to take care of our sacred body vessel.
And as always, we're proud distributors of Kangen water, the life-changing elixir to our lives. And if you want to join our revolution, own the ultimate sustainability tool, and drink antioxidant water, check the links below.
On today's episode, we welcome Laurie Wheeler, and we had met her at the Mind Body Expo in Fort Collins in the spring, and we're happy to have her on our show. She is a transformational holistic healer, and she just shared such really cool stuff regarding, so many things.
Yeah, she really understands energy and the quantum. She really could describe and educate us on dimensions and future and time-space reality. She's a shaman. She literally had so many cool stories too to really enlighten us and our listeners today. So this is definitely an episode where you can learn a lot and even maybe reach out and get her some of her services, because she seems like a real master.
And a very enjoyable story of how she got involved in any of this healing through a water story and a water contamination story. So how perfect is that on the holistic, on our Kangen podcast? Always want to hear about water.
Yes, we are bringing water to the conversation constantly. So grab your earbuds, a pen and pencil, expand your mind, and here is Laurie Wheeler today on our episode. We welcome Laurie Wheeler, who's a transformational holistic healer and has many modalities to enlighten us today. So I'm going to let her take it away. What is your magical art?
My magical art. Well, hi, everyone, and thanks for having me on today. My magical art is energy, and energy has many facets, many vibrations, frequencies, so it is everything. And we don't have energy, we are energy. And so there is a lot to be learned about it, but there are many ways within the facet of energy to heal ourselves, depending on what it is that is out of balance and needs to be adjusted. So it is a magic because it is not well understood. We cannot see it all the time. We hear it, we feel it, we express it, but we don't really quite understand it. And it's mysterious. And that's a special art.
Yes, so cool. I love that answer. No one has said that yet.
Yeah, that's a good, and energy is, we are all energy. So, and obviously there's a lot of modalities and ways to heal with that. So why don't you take us into some of your journeying work or things that you think people need to learn about?
Okay, so I have always been in energy medicine since the beginning of my journey in this, which is now over 25 years. I've lost track, but it's in that. And so I began, I'll give a little skinny of how I got started in all of it. It started and came to me through my, what I call, as I began to search for my health, I found my soul. And so what happened is I, with my family, built a house, and the house was on ground that was very contaminated, the well water. And water being very important for us, we need non-contaminated water. It made us all very sick. And so I began to search for a way to heal, went through traditional medicine and did not find what I was looking for. So then I began to search in what I call complementary or alternative ways. And I started with chiropractic and acupuncture, and just nothing quite seemed to do the job until I found homeopathy. And that if you're not familiar, homeopathy is a medicine that is holistic. It treats the entire person, mind and body. And so that began to help us all, I want to say transform. It began to change many things, the mind and the body. And so from there, it was a great learning experience coming into this, because I really didn't know anything about this. And so it was my learning experience. And actually, I'll stop there. I have written a book about many different things, including that journey into this opening, called "Oh No, Not Another Learning Experience," because it's all learning, right? So it took me from that into what I call the unseen realm, or the journeys of discovery. And that is what I call across the veil, the unseen realm in past life, between life and future life, soul regression, and channeling, and listening to my higher self, those who guide me and help me along the way, as I have great help, what I call on the other side. And yeah, it's been a great journey along the way. Many wonderful things to learn and share with people.
Yeah, let's see your book. Let's see, flash your book for us.
Wow.
Oh, I
And
love it.
I'll just add that the very first remedy I ever learned about was the butterfly. So for me, the butterfly is transformational. And I guess that's where I regain my title, or take my title from, because it is about going from the cocoon and coming into the magnificence of who we are, who our energy is, who we are, the magnificent souls that we all really are, but forget or don't know, we're not in touch with. So
Yes, I love that. I mean, my mom always says this on our podcast, your mess is your message. And so that's definitely, from water contamination, which is something we love to bring to the conversation, is water, and how important that is for your health. And like, that was your first stop, was water. What water are we drinking? Which then led you to A, B, C, and D to really help your family. So for you, yeah, like, water is so important. Can you just make a comment about water for us today?
water, there's a lot to talk about. Life is water. And I used to live in Hawaii, and I actually have a t-shirt with a turtle on it. And the life is water. It is everything. Most of our body is made up of water. And one thing that I did learn from being sick and really studying what was going on the land and how it was affecting us, we lived in an area where it was highly concentrated with chemicals. There was a chemical plant about a mile away. There was a guy who used to crop dust and drop all the chemicals on the land, and so on and so forth, and many others. And so water is very important. And when it's contaminated, it's very dangerous, because we do not realize this. I actually lived on an aquifer, and that is like a lake, a huge lake underground. But what we don't realize is we think water runs down gravitationally. Not always the case. It actually can run upward, up a hill, literally. So we can go in many different directions. And what it does is whatever it goes over, it will grab part of that and take it with. So 20 miles away, you can be receiving in your water what is over that way. So in learning all this, I began to understand it. How does that connect with us too? And then water being in what I understand in shamanic understanding and such, and the indigenous people know it to be, and in the dream work also, it is indicative of our emotional state. So if we dream water, whether we're in a lake or it's running or it's overflowing, that's, talking to us about what's going on in a deeper level too. So it's vast.
No, and I appreciate that you share that, because we did always live, like I'm sure like you did, you think your water's safe, you got a well, your place looks good, and you know what I mean? It's beautiful and wonderful. And here it was like a contaminant and we're 70%. So that can really take you down quickly. And the other thing I wanted to ask was about you said past life, future life, and in between. And just for people, some people, you know, believe in reincarnation, some don't. Whether or not they believe in that, how is that supportive to people in their growth and learning and healing, just from your experience, so people can understand it's not always about, you know, full facts like we do in science?
Sure. Well, there is a science to back it up. And I'll say the science is quantum. And so thankfully that it's come out of the closet, so to speak, you know,
Yes.
which is great because it does back it up. It backs up much that what we cannot see, what we do not understand, what I call it within the atom, within the splitting of atom, within the subatom. And then there's a space below that called quark. I won't get into all the detail of it, but this is all energy. And so, having said that, for people that may or may not believe that they've existed before, there is an understanding that we are not just this physical body. We are much more than that. We live in universes that are expansive, and quantum proves that it is constantly expanding and growing. And so we are also. So if you are a non-believer of another time, when you die, the question is, where do you go? So there is a part of us that remains in spirit all the time. And then there is a part of our soul that embodies in one form or another. And I won't get into too much of that, but the part that remains in the spirit form is what's called our higher selves, all right, or our higher consciousness. And it is connected to all of consciousness throughout the universes. Everything is stored in this energy field called consciousness. Okay. So it's like this. You are thinking about Aunt Tilly, and suddenly 5 minutes later, she calls and says, I have a delicious pie I want to drop off to you. And you're like, I was just thinking about you. Okay. So that's her high self in spirit and your high self in spirit communicating in this field of consciousness, okay? And you just listened to it as it came through into yourself, and she listened and said, oh, and there's magic, okay? So in that, when you believe that there's this spirit about you, when we die and we leave our body, the spirit part of us, the part that's still in the embodiment, this energy, what we call a vital force, what we call our energy, is part of that higher self-consciousness. So it leaves and it comes back to the whole higher consciousness of your soul. Having said that, we have other times, other places that this energy exists in besides the spirit and besides just this body. There are other places. And that's a whole other subject we could talk hours on. But just given that thought, okay, and science does back this up, this concept. And people have angels and spirit guides that also talk to them about this. And they also come from this energy field. So when we are in another time, there are things that we carry in what we call a karma. And there are things that we need to learn and need to let go of. And so by being here, we're relearning or we're adjusting or we're moving through it. So what a past life does is it helps us go to that time that is connected to current time right now. And it helps us understand it in this deep intrinsic way that surpasses just the conscious brain of you and I talking. It goes into the deeper places, into the memories that we store time after time, that we carry through lifetimes. And so we let go, we release, and then we can move through that time after time without carrying all that baggage. And then between lives spends more time in the between time, where we make our contract, where we spend time with our spiritual counsel. Who are they? What color is my soul? What is my soul ray? What is the information that's stored in the library about me? Who's in my soul pod? Oh my goodness. We could spend hours retrieving information. And where's my soul's origin? Am I an earth-based soul? Am I an interplanetary soul, which means I incarnate time after time, really in other places? And I spend very few times, only a couple times here on Earth, which is myself. I am an interdimensional, interplanetary. An earth-based soul is that which carnates time after time. And as you build your wisdom, you remain to help others to learn. The younger souls, and there are many young souls here right now, come to learn things, because Earth is a playground and a real exploration. So it's a beautiful place. And then there are those that come from the angelic realm. And that's a whole other subject also. And they only come to Earth to help humanity. In fact, there's a council that was just formed, and I hate to say not too long ago, because time is a strange thing, but of recent, we'll say, just for Earth, because Earth is in a crisis of change right now. And where do we want to go with all of it? And so they're guiding and helping us too. That's a mouthful of explanation.
I love it.
No, you did great.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I followed, and it really fit with what I resonate with, and I've tried to teach Erika, although we all have our own way to see it. I think you well explained it, bringing in the science as well as the ideas, and that the support that people can get to kind of just let go. Because whenever you do learn a karma thing or have a clearing of that nature, I know for me, like the relationship or whatever I was stuck in, it really makes sense. And like you said, this very deep way, it's almost weird, because it's like, how does that story unlock this story in a way that isn't so conscious, but is very much, you got it. Mm-hmm. You know, like, oh, that makes sense why we'd be caught in that little grime.
Yeah. So for me, I guess it's like when you talk about your future self. So is there like a part of our soul that is in the future?
You know, time is not the way we think of it linear, like today and then tomorrow and the next day. It's all going on. But why it's going on has to do with frequency and what we'll call dimensions. So here on Earth, we are in what we know third dimension. And it's kind of heavy, you know, heavy emotional, heavy things we have to go through. It's a lot of learning, right? And so we want to move through this. And so when we're in other places also, there is a part of us that knows it, but it's not in our, what I call the ego brain, that is aware of, you know, this is green and the sky is blue and the grass, you know. It's not that part. It's a part that's almost dormant, that we're actually allowed to forget, because we're not supposed to really know what's going on, because that may affect us in our growth here while we're in this dimension. So now dimensions are vibrations. So the easiest way to describe it is that, you know, we all know the dog whistle, okay? And the dog whistle may be something that you actually cannot even hear, but a dog who listens in a different vibration than we do can hear it. Or something like, and this is part of my work too, is that everything has a specific coding or essence in what we'll call megahertz, which is a particular your vibration, mine different than yours or anybody else's. Okay. But there is a particular vibration that we want to remain in, and that's about 62 to 70 megahertz. When we drop below that, like below 58, that's lower than what we're designed to be. And so that allows illness, entities, darkness to come in. Our mind is supposed to vibrate also and be in harmony with the rest of us and connected to our higher self all the time. So you asked about future self. So as I am here in 3D, I know, because I have visited and others have visited also, what we consider, what we call future, but it's just another dimension and vibration that we connect with. And knowing what you're doing there can actually come back and share information and help you know better what to do here, how to be smarter, how to prepare, how to clear things. So I often say for those souls that are what I call of more wisdom, they may want to go to a future self and have a conversation like myself and others to understand better what's your mission here. Because two things very important: who you really are, and that is you in your higher self without our illusion of what we buy into. I call the rotten apple syndrome, or the skip in the record syndrome, that keeps playing over and over, the junk, and okay, enough of it. That who you really are, the magnificent soul that you were born to be, that you, the spark of light that comes from the source. And also, why are you here? Because you came for a mission. And so in all the work that I do, and others also, we are working to help people find this information so that we can be the best of who we are in the human form that we take on here in this lifetime. We've come to do something, and it's important to know, what is that?
I think it was a very clear way around.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, our mind will never probably understand what you're saying. Honestly, like you said, it is like a feeling. I mean, future self, time and space collapsing. I mean, I follow a couple people on my social media who are all about frequency and vibration, and really, yeah, your future self is tapping into that vibration, tapping into, okay, well, what do you want? Tap into the vibration here and now, and it will draw to you. But it's always a great reminder and lovely to hear other people's way of explaining this, because it's so easy, but yet it's not too. Like our brains get in the way.
Well, and I like how you connected it to Hertz and just knowing that, because I can go, all right, and I can tap into this frequency of greater wisdom here, and we've all done that, or we've been in an emergency, or something has thrown us into that connectedness state of a frequency, and then I can say, all right, well, yeah, that is my future self, that's my higher self, that's another plane. Things are happening simultaneously. We're in the MSIA, which is the movement of spiritual inner awareness. So you're always moving up and down these frequencies, and the game becomes, or the understanding of how to call that in and be in charge of that and pull that to your benefit, and that's the mastery and learning of it. And it's a long journey. So I love that.
Yeah.
Hey listeners, did you know that we sell Kangen water ionizers? We consider it the #1 sustainability tool, because not only do we get to drink the best hydrogen-rich antioxidant water, we also get to detox our home from all the chemicals and cleaners, get to use some of the 7 kinds of water for different health ails, and we save the earth of plastic and toxins.
Yes, and who doesn't want to help this earth back to homeostasis, just like our bodies? Researchers show now that hydrogen is the #1 antioxidant you can add to your life. So what easier way than just changing the type of water you're drinking for you and your family? This water is microclustered, so it can actually hydrate you at a cellular level, helping your longevity, your immunity, and your vitality. So if you want to help us spread the awareness of Kangen water ionizers and purchase one today, check the links below and join our team and help us spread the word about healing water. All right, let's get back to the magic.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all learning tools so that we can raise our vibration to higher than 70 megahertz because so the place that we access all of this, which I've talked about, our conscious brain right now, as we're speaking, is in a higher vibration. It moves at a higher frequency. When we lower the brain wave frequencies and we go quieter and quieter, and we do it every day as we're waking up and then we're going into sleep, we're moving through these frequencies. So we all do it. And then it comes and moves while we're sleeping. But as we go into the lower ones, this is when we can access all that is not really apparent to us as you and I are talking in our conscious waking brain state. And that's where accessing and then having this, what I call a journey or the experience to help wake us up more, help us understand how to remain because in that frequency. So what's really important is about raising our vibration. But the real key, because we can come and go, as you talk about, there are tools, there are places, there are groups that are teaching us every day how to do that. I think the key is how to maintain that as often as possible. So we know when we come out of it, you look at somebody in the grocery store and they're kind of agitated, and then they look at you and they blame you for something. You dropped all the apples on the floor, whatever. And immediately it can start, you can move down the rabbit hole because then it connects or triggers something within the self, or doesn't, one or the other. But if you do go down that rabbit hole, then you're out of those frequencies that we want to remain in. And so finding the right tools to come back into that, and sometimes we need help and sometimes we can do it ourselves, with the meditations and different ways to, and water is one too, what you've got going on helps the cells communicate. And the cells, we don't think about it. Oh, one's talking to the other. Oh, yeah. But, everything lives in a symbiotic relationship, or should, in the body. We've got some of the most dangerous things going on in our body, but because it's symbiotic, they live in harmony. When it goes out of sync, then one begins to take over, much like cancer. Cancer is cells gone chaotic. So well before it goes into the physical, it's started in another energy field that is around you. Your thinking, the deep, deep feelings of our emotions, things of that nature.
Yes, I agree with that. So yeah, you're talking about these like tools. Are there any tools you can share with our listeners to help us stay in a high vibration or shift our energy? As energy is your magical art, we would love to hear.
Great. Well, I think my most very favorite and easiest to do, and maybe not for everybody, because I have heard people say they have difficulty with it. So there's ways to get over that stumbling block. There's always ways. We just have to, sort of clear the block and understand what's blocking or such. But I think meditation, and then what I call guided meditation. So I use in my regression, soul regression, and other works that I do, hypnotic soul regression. And that just takes you in. And some people just come for coaching to work more with their higher self and their master guides. You don't have to go into another lifetime, but having the access at that real deep place and somebody guiding really helps greatly to pull yourselves into that frequency. But we can all do meditation. There's so many. I'm actually in the process and almost finished writing for children, tweens, and teens an activity of meditations for young people, little all the way up. And what kind of got me going was during the COVID, we realized children having much more struggle and difficulty still, because you're seeing the ripple effect now. So that got my wheels spinning and some sense of, okay, let's go to work on this. What can we do here? And I did a guided meditation with my 4.5-year-old grandson. And it was just about, and in the grouping that I put together, we have a nature series. And one of them is just getting in touch with nature, because nature brings information and raises our vibration. We all love to be in nature, smell a flower, take a walk, whatever. So when we do that, we can bring that into our visual also. So I had him just stand and kind of imagine. Let's imagine your feet and your legs are like the roots of a tree and they're growing down in the ground. And what does that all feel like? What's down in there in the ground? Did we come across something that can tell us something? And now my arms are stretched out like branches and feel the wind. And the bird, it wants to come and talk with us. It's our friend. And so having a young realization of this puts us in touch, and begins to help us realize that not only can we touch it physically, but we can touch it within our minds, because that's just conscious imagination. And so where one leaves off and another begins, who's to say that that's wrong? It all is, according to energy. So I think these are some of the tools, but I have a lot of tools that I work with people also. I work with some lasers and different physical things that help people also. So, yeah.
Love that. And I also, something that really hit me that I think is important, especially now, was, maybe you could just talk about the support, because so often we're alone, and in this time people got very lonely. And there's even times when you can be in a great big room, around people, and you're still not connected. And you were saying everyone's guides, and I know I try to remind myself and Erika of all the abundance that's here, and the whole world is wanting us to become, and like you said, do our mission, do our work, help us learn what we're here to do, and learn and support us. So a little bit about the guides, because I think it's important for people to realize they're not alone. It's not just other humans, the eagles, the trees, the angels, and whatever are here to help us out.
Well, yes. Okay. So everything is a sort of guidance in one way or another in our world, whether it be coming through the difficult or the harsh way, or coming in a positive way. But everything is about guidance. There are those people that actually recognize that they have guides. Some people that are not as well read or connected may just say, I know I have a guardian angel. And you do. We all have a guardian angel, but we all have much more. So I'll mention that there are different guides that come to us at different times in our life. Now, here's the thing about soul guides, okay? So much the way what goes on here on Earth, as we start out from a really young child and we grow all the way up into older age, we hit different points, learning points in our life, right? And we're learning. So I know much more than I did at 5 years old. Well, guides go through the same kind of training on the other side. So one who may just be learning how to be a guide is not going to be your master guide, because a master guide is one that has gone through much training on the other side and has worked with many people to help them, come through their life. So it has to do with their wisdom and how they've learned their wisdom on the other side. So our world is very reflective of literally what goes on the other side. We don't stop to think about it, but it's a very thin veil. Then again, there are guides of all different types, so we do have in Native American culture and other cultures of wisdom, recognize that, any much in nature. So we have the plant life, animal life, spirit life. We call the wind and the Father Sky and Mother Earth and the insects and the animals and rocks and, oh my goodness, all kinds that come and speak because they have a message. And so they may be just for a moment sharing something with you in some sort of way. But the question is, are you able to hear it? Are you open enough to really receive what that specific something comes to you? So I say, well, you might see a bug walking across the table. It may not be a guide coming to talk to you, but if something shows up in an odd way, then you may say, well, that is really speaking to me, So in whatever way it shows up, you must ask yourself, what does it have to tell me? What's the message? Or you may want to just sit and lean up against a tree. And I talk about that in my book. I had a major experience in my life that opened me to this. And the tree literally called me. This tree was so important in the rest of my life and how it hinged on that moment. So, and I won't tell about it because I'll ask you to read the book. It's a real easy read, lots of information and talking about what we're talking about today, but very informative. So, this tree, I didn't know much at the time about all of this. I was in my early 30s, if I remember correctly, or 30, and I leaned up against this tree and all of this information came flooding in. And it was imperative to my life. It was life-changing, actually. Mm-hmm. So they can come in all different ways. They can come in spirit form. They can come in physical form. What's most important, it can come in a billboard if you're not paying attention, But definitely, it's important to pay attention. That's the thing. What's the oddity that's showing up in your life for the day,
I like that question.
Yeah, and I think it makes it more magical. Like for me, I'm always like that because when a hawk swoops your car, or out of the corner of your eye you catch a creature, or for me, I just suddenly know. Sometimes I leave and I don't lock my door, and I just have this sense that there's an angel's like, oh, take care of my plate. Like, I don't even know whatever made me say that, but I just did one day in my head. Hey, keep it safe. So I do feel like it's a time to tap in and sense that, and not to always think it's linear, it's this A plus B equals C. And I really want others to know that there's lots of ways that they're being supported that isn't just human. My friend helps me, or my parents help me, or something like that.
We have a lot of help on the other side. Many of us have, I can't even count how many are on the other side helping us. But again, like I said, they all have a mission, a particular job to help with. So one may help you with your job, another with your family, another with your growing in your work, another if you're 10 years old and you're having struggle in school. There are guides to help you. And that's why I've put this together to help people have a realization, especially young folks. Oftentimes they can't go to their parents to actually speak about things. Parents aren't always open to hear what they think their child's talking nonsense. If I had gone to my mother at 5 years old and said, I'm really having communication with my guides, my mother would have said, what are you talking about? Because I don't think she would have really understood it. So who do you go to? Who's that person? We, as people that are aware, need to be there and available for those that may be lurking and searching. And there's a lot of young people, young children, young teens coming in now that are really waking up and struggling with, okay, they're coming from this old way of thinking, but they really need to break into this new, or they have this information and they don't know who to go to. And so how do they develop themselves also? So we need to be aware for that, but also they need to know that they are not alone. There are many that also feel that way, and they are being helped from the other side. Maybe not in the physical, but they are being helped. And so keep your ears open. Don't discount what you hear in your sense, in your feeling, in your gut. Listen to it. It's talking to you. You're going to learn this, how to listen to this, because this is part of being here now and then being able to access. We hear it through our high self, which comes in through the crown and into our heart and into what is called that third eye.
Yeah, I agree. I think the kids definitely need help, especially because people talk about transitioning into the new paradigm. We're transitioning into 5D. Like, there is a lot happening that even if you are, stuck in your old ways or stuck in old thinking, like, you can still feel it happening and seeing it in our world right now. That, like you said, it's the biggest transition right now, I think, and we're all of our souls signed up for to be a part of this if we want to.
Right. I have a great story I'd like to share, and this is in the topic of young people. Okay. So some years ago, about 10 years ago, my husband was asked, he's an architect, he was asked to come down to this particular center in Guanajuato, Mexico, and design this, what we'll call a retreat center. And he told the woman, what it is that my background is and what I do. And she said, oh, please bring her along. So we went down to the center, and this center, the woman had heard that there was a high school that was having difficulty with its teenagers. I want to say 15 through 17, that age. And they were kind of like rival gangs within this high school. Not uncommon. It's all over the place and globally, right? So I do shamanic journey work and have for over 25 years. And what that is going into the unseen realm and seeing the symbology and listening to what it has to speak. So we were talking about guides and animals and plants and how they speak to you. And this is one way we can go in quietly. The sound of the drum beat will take you in those lower frequencies so that you can begin to listen and see and get a sense using your senses of what you need to hear. So we went into this school, and I don't speak Spanish, but my husband's very fluent because he lived in South America for a while. So we went in and we asked about 80 children or teens to lay down on the auditorium floor. And now, knowing teens, you had your groups and one's laying on top of the other, and they're just making fun of it. And we're having a lot of fun. And I want to say some of what my husband said was a little at my expense because I don't understand all of Spanish. So I would know he was making a joke or two, but it's all in fun and good to, to connect with them, because you need to come at their level to reach them. So everybody got quiet and we started to play the music, the drum, and my husband plays the didgeridoo. So it's a crisscrossing of ancient sound that really, again, in energy calls. It calls the ancients, it calls the ancestors, it calls all of the medicine, which we call the plants, the minerals, the animals. They carry the medicine, the information that helps us grow and heal. And so they brought this in, and in this darkness, and as shamans understand, everything happens in the darkness, in the unseen realm. In fact, that is more real than the illusion that we live with in our physical realm. And so it was about, how do we help these children let go of what they and their ancestors have been fighting over hundreds of years, which they don't even know what they're fighting for anymore. They're just carrying the lineage of, So all of this taking place in this quiet time as we're playing the music. And what I saw, and I don't always see the same thing that everybody else does, but I see what I'm supposed to see. Now, this is a very spiritual culture, but at the same time, very religious in Catholicism. So what I see, and now not everybody believes in Jesus, depending on what your religion is, but Jesus is a master guide. And actually, what I understand Jesus's name in another spectrum is Sananda. And that comes in different cultures and different awareness, but we'll call him Jesus for now, for the sake of. And so what happened was Jesus was walking down the aisle of all of these young people laying down. I didn't call him in. I just was playing the music and asking for healing for what they were going through. And he walks down the aisle and he's talking with all the children. Now, there's no talking really, but he's talking. And he's asking them, there's no need for the fighting any longer. We need to live in peace. Let go of your anger, the things that he said. When we were all finished, we all came back into the consciousness and everybody got up and came about into the room. Now, this is 80 children, young teens, right? They were so amazed. They said, what was the magic that you brought? Because we want to know more about that. It was magical. Many saw Jesus. Okay. I was not speaking during all of this. This is what goes on in the energies of, okay. And when your intention is brought out, the energy brings it back in. It connects to it. That what you put out energetically comes in. And so the intention was for healing, for letting go. And they let go. They literally said afterwards, we want more of this, okay? And they were happy not to be angry with each other any longer. I mean, my brains couldn't fathom how beautiful this happening was with these young people. It was amazing. It was really magical, and so happy to be a part of that, to help them. But they really, you could see the transformation amongst them. So yeah, that's what it can do. And I could tell you story upon story of what this does for people and how it makes the change for all of us. We just need to do it.
Isn't that right? We just need to do it.
Yeah.
But
I love that. I love that story. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Because the youth is the next generation, and oftentimes people think we're lost with the youth, or they're not the way we are, and yet evolutionary, they're smarter than us, or we'd be their children. So I always like to remind people that.
Definitely. Well, we are at the top of the episode today. Laurie, are there any last nuggets you want to leave our listeners before we end today?
I would just really like to say that each one of us matters, and each one of us holds light, because that is who we come from originally. We all have light within us, even those who we don't think. And I'll just speak according to what's going on in our world today. We all carry light, but some are just clouded by the darkness. And we have to remember that there's a lot of division going on right now. What we need to remember is to respect everyone, because that person who might be in the dark right now, we don't know what their evolution is. We don't know, are they going to come into the light and learn? So rather than be divided, if you don't know what else to do, just send light and love. And that is the intention that will be carried. You will be continuing to put light into the world rather than darkness. So let's all put some light into the world today.
Oh, I love that. That's a
Thank
great nugget.
you.
Thank you so much for today and the sharing.
Thank you. I really appreciate this time and opportunity. And it's been so lovely spending time with you both today.
The episode isn't quite over yet, listeners.
Or YouTubers.
If you haven't given us a like, subscribed, left us a review, or commented on any platform, we would really appreciate appreciate you showing us some love here at the Magical Holistic Healing Arts. And remember, Kangen water and our grab bag for the podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and stay vibrant out there.